to me, that's where the world is heading. Getting out face to face is so important. You cannot replicate the trust that happens when you meet face to face. A lot of people are still working remote. And so it's almost like, oh, somebody wants to take me to dinner and come to hang out? Absolutely. I don't get that engagement anymore.
Welcome to the Animals Podcast. I'm Ty Magnan, the CEO at Animals.
And I'm Tim Metz, the Director of Marketing and Innovation.
This season on the Animals Podcast, we're pulling back the corporate curtain to show you how the largest, most complex B2B SaaS teams actually get content out the door. Hear from content leaders of some of the biggest names in SaaS, sharing the systems they've built, the battles they've fought, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Today, we're talking with Matt Hummel. Matt runs marketing at Pipeline360. After 2 decades leading brand strategy at Deloitte and demand at Demandbase. But Matt isn't your average marketing leader. Today, we're talking about how Matt has been running a unique distribution playbook for his content. Matt's playbook involves him literally boarding a plane to hand deliver assets to prospects and customers. And I think there's a lot to learn and sort of stretch your mind around content distribution from this special episode. So I'm excited for you to learn from Matt about his bold, unscalable approach that we dubbed the flying distribution engine. If you're like most B2B content marketers, you want to lead the conversation in your industry. At Animals, we help B2B software companies do exactly that by creating standout, survey-driven, state-of-the-industry type reports that help you grow your brand authority, backlinks, and pipeline. In just 12 weeks, we run a process that helps uncover narratives from a unique data set packaged into a beautifully designed flagship content asset that your whole team is going to be proud of. Book a consult now at animals.co/whitepapers and find out how to set the new benchmark for your industry. Matt Hummel, thanks so much for joining us. Would you give us your intro? And then the question we ask to all of our guests is, what content are you consuming lately?
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me on the show. It's great to be here. And a little about me, Matt Hummel. I have been doing really B2B marketing my entire career. Started out, I got a marketing degree, and my career's really been split in 2 halves. First half was really primarily around brand and professional services marketing. And then the second half's really been more around demand and tech. And so in my most current position, I'm running marketing at Pipeline360, and I'm getting to kind of do it all. So we're very much a company that's focused on differentiating our brand, but obviously driving demand is wildly important. So it's been a great opportunity to kind of bring both of those things together. It's a little services, a little tech, kind of all bundled into one. So that's a little about me. And what content have I been consuming recently? So there's actually a couple of books I've been reading. One's called I've got them over here on my desk, The Storytelling Edge and Everybody Writes. And I've really just been kind of consuming content that I can find around both storytelling, but also, really using storytelling to build and differentiate a brand. I think for better or for worse, the importance of brand kind of disappeared over the past 5 to 7 years from a perception standpoint. I don't think the importance of it actually truly went away, but I think more and more, B2B marketers focus simply on demand. We've got to drive revenue. And so, brand is back. And I know we're going to talk through some of that today, but so I've just really been honing in on, how can I learn from some people who've done this really, really well to really create memorable and impactful brands.
Awesome. And yeah, see some of that coming true for Pipeline360. And you've been obviously a member of other pretty well-known marketing brands. I like to think you, Matt, as like a marketer's marketer. I mean, you've been doing a lot of MarTech marketing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I spent time at Demandbase prior to this. And so that was really my foray in, if you will, into MarTech. But yeah, I mean, I've worked for some great brands from Deloitte, Thomson Reuters, to name a couple. And so I like that, a marketer's marketer. That, and actually that ties directly into, I know our topic at hand, and it's what has made this role in particular really fun.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about the topic at hand.
Let's do it.
Holding on to this podcast for, I don't know, we've known each other for more than 6 months, 7 months. We've kind of been talking about this idea for 6, 7 months.
Yeah.
And it just struck me over the head when you told me, like, one of your most important go-to-market motions is what you're doing around distributing white papers. And we are referring to it on this podcast, at least. Hopefully we can take it beyond as the flying distribution engine.
That's a great name. And our buddy Tim's responsible for that, correct?
Yes.
Well done, Tim. I think marketing, I see a future for you in marketing.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Yeah, help the audience understand what the hell are we talking about, Matt?
Yeah, so it's a little bit ironic because Pipeline360 is at its core, of course, we don't position ourselves as this, but we're a content syndication provider. So we syndicate white papers and other forms of content through common syndication practices. Yeah, for us, we have seen great success outside of that channel getting out on the road. And so twice a year, we have created a white paper through market research. So we've surveyed more than 500 B2B marketers. We've all around a topic of pipeline growth in B2B marketing and just really the challenges. And it's been a very relevant topic, obviously. There's so many things that have sort of shaped the current world of marketing, from the economy to, MarTech, to you've got downsizing and budget cuts, and yet goals are going up. And so it's been a great opportunity for us through this research to put together a really compelling story. And for Pipeline360 in particular, our business is really won and lost through relationships. And so getting to take this content out and deliver it in person is really what you're referring to as, what did you call it? The flying content
distribution.
Flying distribution engine.
Yeah. So that's in essence what I've done. It's the short version is, over the last 18 months or so, I've probably met with 600 or 700 different marketers throughout really the world delivering this research. And it's not just me presenting, it's really become more of an interactive and engaging way to connect with our customers and prospects.
So crazy. How many flights do you think you've taken to do this distribution?
Oh, man. Well, I'm not 1K yet, so it's not been, my wife would say it's been 500. It's probably been like 50, 60. I don't know. It's probably somewhere in between, if I'm being honest, but it's been a lot. Yeah. And thankfully, my wife and kids have been super supportive of it, but it's also just, it's very seasonal. So we release a report beginning of year and kind of end of year. And so kind of take it out to market in spring and fall. So I definitely am not out on the road full time, but during those seasons, it's definitely, I get shipped out quite a bit to go get to deliver this. Marketer is what it really is.
Right. Let's talk about the nuts and bolts of this thing. So I'm really curious to know from like step one, it's like you're booking these meetings, right? I'm sure some of them are recurring, like, hey guys, I'm back in Paris next week, got the latest report here, et cetera. Others, maybe they're prospects that the sales team is teeing up. Let's start there. How did these meetings get booked?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to shout out to my colleague Ben, because he actually owes me a meeting in Paris. I've not gotten to go there yet, and he said he'd make it happen this year. So good call out on Paris, but it's been different almost each time. So we create the research, and then, like I mentioned earlier, because we're a relationship oriented business, our sales reps have great relationships certainly with their customers, and then some of our prospects as well. And so it's really the focus of the invite has been, hey, we're not trying to sell to you, but we've created this really compelling research through 500 of your peers. And it's really interesting, and so here's a little teaser on what we're going to talk about. Of course, we have to talk about AI, because otherwise we can't get a meeting, right? I say that a little tongue in cheek, but it's obviously the hottest topic out there.
For sure.
And then we say like, hey, we're bringing a marketer to come talk to you about this. And so we're not only going to go through the challenges, but we're also going to talk about, again, from a data perspective, the companies that are succeeding, the marketers that are succeeding, here's what they're doing well. And so it's sort of like, it's a little bit therapy in the sense of, hey, we know it's a challenging time out there. Let our VP of marketing come, share the findings of our results, which we think you can certainly empathize with. But then also we've seen, we have some great insights that we think are very relevant in helping you guys. So that's kind of the invite. And then the meetings get set and the plane tickets get bought. And
how do you organize the schedule, like the logistics of it?
We've tried actually two different approaches. So we've tried where we said, hey, let's go to San Francisco the week of June 10th. So we say, hey, reps, with that market, start scheduling every meeting possible from, San Jose to San Francisco and everywhere in between. And that worked okay because I think for the sales reps, it gave them a time frame which they could go and try to get as many meetings scheduled. That worked pretty well. But then we also were scrambling to get, any meeting possible because we really want to maximize our time in market. We've also tried where we said, hey, we're going to be in San Francisco, or not even we're going to be in San Francisco, but rather, hey, sales rep, go try to schedule a meeting with a large account in San Francisco, whenever that is. So over these next 3 months, and then let's build around that. And so on one hand, that's been good because then we have sort of that anchor meeting with the key customer or key account that we really want to meet with. But it's also hard because it's so open-ended and schedules change so much. And so it's harder to schedule a meeting without sort of that sense of urgency. So we've been kind of playing around with a couple of those motions. And at this point, we've kind of taken a bit of a hybrid approach, to be honest with you.
What percentage of the meetings are repeat versus net new?
Yeah, great question. So interestingly, I would say 99% of the meetings have been net new. And the reason for that is, in 2024, we did a first half wave of the research and it was great. It got us into every customer that we could. And then we reran the research and the results were different, but not that different, where it created a brand new narrative where we could go, hey, customer, I know we met with you 6 months ago. We've got to do it. I didn't want to go deliver the new research to the same customer because they'd already heard 80, 90% of the story.
Right.
And so this year we've taken a little bit different approach where we're going to have an annual state of B2B pipeline growth. And then mid-year, we're going to do a deeper dive research into a specific topic. We don't know what that topic is yet, but it could be account-based marketing. It could be, it could be something around data, buying groups, for example. And so we almost use a lot of the meetings to help us determine what will the next topic be. But that way, because we want everything to be oriented around the customer's interests. And so that way, when we go back out to market in the fall, yes, we can certainly meet with new customers who didn't get the first wave or really the annual wave of research, but then we'll have a new stick, if you will, that if we've already met with someone, we can go do a deeper dive.
Nice.
Do you show up by yourself, or is there also like a local sales rep in the area? I don't know how the organization is structured exactly.
We always bring the account executive for that account, and that they're really the relationship owner, and they're not there to sell. But I got to be honest, I've been in more meetings than I can count where we get to the end and they're like, this is great. What can you do to help? And so we ended up evolving our presentation because it was not sales oriented at all. And then at the end, I'm sort of like, hey, I know this isn't a sales meeting, but the last 10 people have been frustrated that we didn't come and try to sell them something. So here you go. And the great thing is, like, our solutions were really designed to solve marketers' biggest challenges, which were identified in the market research. So we bring sales rep. Oftentimes we'll bring a sales leader. But yes, it's usually just a pretty small team on our side.
Nice. Well, that way you have a travel companion too.
100%. It goes a long way.
Matt, I have a pretty good sense of who Pipeline360 is selling to, but help the audience here. Like, what kinds of companies are we talking about?
We primarily work in the tech industry, though. We have inventory, if you will, that supports every industry, and we dip into healthcare and manufacturing and financial services. But we work with B2B marketers, and specifically, generally speaking, folks who are in a revenue-oriented role. So think digital, demand, ABM. We've recently expanded our offerings to where we still think about everything we do is demand-oriented, but we've expanded our offering to where now we're kind of thinking about taking more of that supply chain, if you will. And so we know the success of our programs really hinges on a few things outside of our typically or historically that have been outside of our control. So think about the targeting strategy. If you're not targeting the right people, it doesn't matter how good your stuff is, it's not going to be successful. Sure. And then the content itself. And, obviously you guys are a phenomenal content agency. And so we're looking, and we've started to partner with content agencies like yourself who can really bring their expertise into our customers. Working through us, it's a lot simpler, when you've got a more streamlined approach, but that way we can bring on the expertise of a content partner who can create demand-focused content that we know will work. And then there's the other, once the lead has been created, the demand's been created, it's really the nurturing, the follow-up, so on and so forth. So we recently launched what we're calling demand as a service, which is really taking a more holistic approach to creating demand outside of our offering. And so that means we're now getting in front of content marketers, brand marketers, even some VPs and CMOs who really understand, I need help. At the end of the day, I really just want the output. My MarTech stack's inefficient. It's not really working for me. So how can we work with you, companies like yourself to help drive better impact?
Give me the leads, right?
Give me the leads.
That's right.
Yeah.
Smart. So you're kind of taking this sort of end-to-end approach nowadays.
100%. So it's less give me the leads and it's more give me the pipeline.
Right. Yeah. Fair. Okay. Next chapter. Take us inside the meeting room. Okay. So
yeah,
you're walking in. Usually these companies have an office, I imagine. How does it all go from there?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, did you ever see the Hamilton, the play, the musical? Sure. Yeah. It's like, take me the room where it happened kind of a thing. If you remember that song.
Yes. I won't sing it for you, but yes, that's what I'm asking. Yes.
Well, I don't know if it was that exciting, but it has been really fun. So we get to the room and yes, we're always meeting in a customer's office. And the most important part of the entire meeting is what happens when we get in the room, which is the introductions and just getting the customer talking. And the reason that's important, one, it shows we care, which we do, but it allows us to hear what's on their mind, and so first of all, just even the basic introductions. Hey, you're an ABM marketer, you're a field marketer, you're a digital marketer. I'm taking notes and I'm starting to process how do the data and insights that I'm going to present really, how do they speak to that person specifically? And then from there, again, being a marketer, I can start to ask questions around like, hey, how do you measure success? What's your attribution model? What's your content strategy? What's your campaign strategy? And so again, I can start to understand both experientially what they're doing and what I think is probably working or not working, as well as what the data, again, is showing us is working or not working. And so it allows me to tailor the ensuing discussion to be more specific to them. But it also gives us, at the end of the day, we're in business to make money. It gives us the ability to better understand their challenges and pain points and ultimately how we can help, serve them. So I always tell the sales rep, because they're pretty eager a lot of times, like, oh, we have an agenda, we need to stick to it. And I'm like, look, if we get them talking for 45 minutes of an hour or of an hour and a half, that's great. That means they trust us and they value us. And at the end of the day, if I don't even present the research because we have them talking, it's a win for me. So once we get through that, then we get into the research. And I always say it's not me presenting, it's me leading a discussion. And that's what I want it to be, because I'm a marketer. I'm also living and breathing the reality of what this data is sharing. And so it's really a great way to, just to connect and share the research. And I always say, like, this is not me. This is 500 of our peers who have said this. So don't shoot the messenger. This is not, I'm not trying to lead the witness here. It can take anywhere from half an hour to an hour, depending on how deep they want to go. And I love it. It's, I mentioned this earlier. A lot of times it's like a therapy session where you just see these, yes, or, oh, I'm not alone. It looks like other companies out there struggling with the same things.
Yeah.
And yet the great part too is it's kind of when you can help. And it's like, it really is like a therapy session where sometimes people just want to be heard and sometimes they want answers. And so, again, we have answers in many of the cases, whether it's through, again, what the research is showing, where companies who are succeeding, sort of their recipes to success, but then also just because I've got experience working in different industries, as well as different size companies and challenges that I faced, I can often just speak anecdotally around my own personal experience.
This is so cool. I mean, I'm comparing this to how most data reports, white papers, that kind of material gets distributed. A, it's, you just blast it over email, people skim it, whatever. B, a lot of companies do a decent job of presenting a webinar to release the report, and maybe they walk through it with some commentary. But this is quite a level deeper, right? Where you're really facilitating a long form conversation in person with these folk. I mean, just the relationship points you earn on that has got to be 100x.
Oh, to me, it's And it's funny because it took me 6 months to realize what we were doing. We're doing one-to-one ABM. We're taking long form content, we're personalizing it and delivering it at the individual account level.
Does the customer experience in that way? Like, how special is it to them? Like, do they really see it as almost as an event, or is it more like, okay, he's stopping by? Like, how's the response from the customer?
Yeah, Tim, I like your questions a lot. That's that one gets me thinking. I think it's been a little bit of both. So early on, we were meeting with oftentimes literally just one customer at a time. And when I say one customer, I mean one person at that account. Part of our challenge is that really post-pandemic, no one's in offices anymore. And not only that, but nobody lives in the same city. So I always use the example, and I don't know that this is accurate, but take a Salesforce. Salesforce, we always knew was in San Francisco. Now we have people who work for Salesforce who live in Austin and Milwaukee and certainly San Francisco. But, my point is we can't just hop over to San Francisco and expect to meet with the entire Salesforce team. In a way, early on, it was less of an event. And I kind of liked that because it made it more sort of organic and personal, where it wasn't, hey, the Pipeline360 show's coming to town. If you want to be part of it, buy your tickets. It was more, hey, we're going to be in town. We'd love to connect with you and really, take you to dinner or grab a coffee or something. And there's still a big part of that. But honestly, it's really evolved to where now we have entire marketing teams who are building us into their offsite. And so just 2 weeks ago, I was in California and I met with one of our customers in their entire demand organization. And we were built in, we had a couple hours with them as part of their 2-day work site or offsite. And, talk about trust earned to be able to get invited to that. These folks get together every couple years. Many had not ever met each other. We took them to dinner the night before. We show up the next morning and we have 2 hours with them. And so it's evolved to where, again, it's not really an event, but we really want them to see us as not a friend per se, and but really a part of an extension of their team.
I assume the feedback you get reinforces what you're saying here.
Yeah, well, it's funny. So I mentioned this meeting in California, and this was definitely the exception, not the norm. Yeah. But after I finished presenting on our new demand as a service offering, really as our response to the current market challenges, I kid you not, everyone in the room started clapping. And I'm like, well, this is awkward, but also really awesome. Yeah. And so, feedback in general has been, thank you. This is great, super helpful. And that then translates into, hey, let's do some follow-ups from a sales perspective, because we really see a clear path for how we can either expand or continue to work together. And so I always say, proof's in the pudding, right? If we're not growing the accounts we're investing in, then it's not working and we'll stop doing this. But right now, whether it's anecdotal through like, hey, thank you, this was great, but really more importantly, are we seeing growth? And the answer is, 100%.
Well, yeah. Can you speak to some of those numbers that maybe you're seeing in terms of conversion from these meetings to, I guess there are already kind of opportunities or at some stage in the sales process, but what results are you seeing from that?
Yeah. And it is interesting because you could make I'm a cynic on attribution in general. So you can make the case, well, they were already a customer. How do you know if what you did actually worked? It's a few things, and I won't go super deep for time's sake, but when you think about ABM and how you measure it, there's different ways. And like anything, the lagging indicator is both pipeline and or revenue. And so, I can definitively say that the accounts that we have met with in general have continued to grow and continued to spend with us. And in many cases, it's opening up doors for us to sell different services into them. There's also other benefits that we're seeing that are sort of more of the near-term success metrics when you think ABM. So, for example, one of the big ABM metrics is, what's your sort of reach within an account. And so we'll meet with these accounts and we'll start talking about how we have capabilities across the brand area of their business, or we have a partner program, and they're like, oh, do you know our partner marketer so-and-so? And we're like, no. And so they say, well, let's facilitate an introduction. And so all of a sudden we now have a warm introduction that we would have never otherwise had. And so, that's a longer tail term in terms of us getting in and selling into that maybe new area of the business. But it's a win because we've identified new contacts, we've had the warm introduction. And so in a few cases too, there we've seen success come from it.
It's awesome. Who do you think this kind of distribution play is right for?
And are you talking about companies sold to or companies selling?
Other companies selling, like you. What kinds of companies like a Pipeline360 would you maybe recommend trying this sort of flying distribution engine?
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's no company like Pipeline360.
Of course.
But with that said, I would not recommend any of our competitors try this because it's exhausting and really inefficient. I think it could work for any company who, at the end of the day, relationships play a key role in their buying process. And arguably, that is every B2B company out there.
Sure.
Excluding maybe a product-led growth type company.
Right.
Relationships, frankly, are becoming increasingly important. One of my favorite marketers who I've worked with, earlier in my career, he and I were both demand. Like we were the science guys, building the campaigns, driving all the numbers to get the results. He is now in a customer, truly experiential marketing role where he's developing these programs that orient around creating these high memorable touch points for customers or prospects and really seeing great impact from that. And so I think, to me, that's where the world is heading. And again, this is just one channel. Obviously we do other things, and I would always recommend other companies don't put all their eggs in one basket. But I think getting out face-to-face is so important. You cannot replicate the trust that happens when you meet face-to-face. And the other piece too, I mentioned, post-pandemic, a lot of people are still working remote. And so it's almost like, oh, somebody wants to take me to dinner and come to hang out. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't get that engagement anymore.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned some of the downsides too, right? You mentioned your wife, you've got 2 boys. Would you speak to that a little bit? What does it cost? And, this thing doesn't really scale.
So it's been something of focus for us because while it doesn't seem like it would scale, it has an opportunity to, it still requires humans though. And so we've tried to create scale in a couple ways. One is if it's a one-off meeting, maybe it's just a prospect, or it's a one-off meeting that we just cannot get to. There was a meeting in the middle of nowhere and there were no other accounts that would make sense for us to meet. We just scheduled it via Zoom and we delivered it virtually. And that was, that was great. It was not the same, but we've done that a lot. That's one way we've tried to create scale. The other is, the research in and of itself doesn't require me or even a marketer to deliver it. And so I will enable our sales organization to deliver the data. The difference is, I can bring an experiential perspective or overlay to deliver it. And so our sales leader always says, I can do it. I just can't do it like you can. And that's not flattering. I'm not patting myself on the back. He's not a marketer and he's not living in this day to day, nor has he for the last 25 years like I have. So it's really, I think it's been just picking and choosing where it makes sense for me to travel. And then, working with and equipping our other sales reps or sales leaders to go out and deliver it, when they can as well.
Nice.
And how much, I'm actually curious, how much of your time does it actually take during those periods?
Yeah. So when I travel for these, it can go, it's usually a full week and there's a lot of prep, cause we'll do 2 or 3 prep calls before really every meeting, who's who within the account, what are the goals? What do we know about what they're facing? How do we want to tailor the overall content? And more often than not, the research is just part of the agenda. It's the bulk of the agenda. It's certainly the hook. But if we're delivering a QBR, for example, we can, bring some data on their latest performance. Or if we want to talk about a new offering. So there's a lot of prep that goes into each. And then afterwards, there's less follow-up for me. That's really where the sales reps come in and do what they're really good at. But when I'm out on the road, it's pretty all consuming.
And the last thing I want to know is what's been the most memorable trip or the most memorable thing that has happened to you in one of these? Yeah,
well, it's really cool. So we had an event in Tuscany last year, and it was a customer event. And so it was different than a roadshow. So we had, 15 of our wonderful customers in Tuscany, really tough place to meet. And, I presented the research. And so it was the first time I delivered the research to a different, collection of customers. And it was well received. But one of the customers said, "This was awesome. We want to get you out to meet with our entire team in Munich, later this year." And I'm like, that sounds awesome. And since then, we've had a team in Amsterdam bring us out, a team in London bring us out. I mentioned California. There's been a couple different teams in different cities there. So we're really starting to see this move towards, like I said earlier too, just that workshop. Tim, though, there was one funny moment that happened at that Munich meeting. So when we did our research last year, we only segmented the respondents in the US and the UK. And because that's really where our business has been. And now we've expanded, really well into APAC and really broader Europe. And so I'm delivering this research and I'm walking them through when we surveyed 500 respondents and, 50% were in UK and 50% were in the US and blah, blah, blah. And our key contact there, who I adore, she goes, and I won't use her accent, but she said, "Hey, Matt, I'm going to interrupt you. We don't care about the US or UK. Go on with your research, but just know if you want to do this again, maybe tailor it for the rest of Europe, because we don't really care about anybody but ourselves." And I don't get embarrassed often, but I could just feel my face turn red and I'm like, okay. And so, when we started our new wave of research, I said, all right, we're segmenting it US, UK, continental Europe, and APAC. And so, we'll make sure that it resonates with the broader global audience.
Matt, I've got an idea for you. Take it or leave it, okay?
Let's hear it.
For the next report, when someone goes to download the thing, instead of a button to download it, it's a button to hey, hand deliver this to me next day air.
Oh my gosh. I got to be honest. I love it. I think the CTA icon should be an airplane.
There you go.
And I think we need to figure out some way where they can literally just, they can book a trip. Don't download it. Book a trip. I love that.
Right. Yeah. It's like, what? Huh? What do you mean it's coming
great.
in 2 weeks,
Yeah. That's amazing.
Well, this is a great story. Thanks so much for sharing it here in the Animals podcast. Where can people find you and follow along with Pipeline360 and some of the other marketing ideas that you share?
Yeah. So you could obviously learn about our company on our website, pipeline-360.com. Pipeline360 was not available. You can find me on LinkedIn. I think it's /Matt Hummel 1. And I also host a podcast, the Pipeline Brew. So I'm always looking for, other marketers out there to talk about anything from content, brand, ABM, or demand. So you can find my podcast, the Pipeline Brew, on any of the platforms as well.
There you have it. Matt Hummel, thanks for joining.
Thank you guys for having me.
So Tim, should we start buying plane tickets and flying you around the world?
Yeah, of course. Well, absolutely. No, I love the broad. I love that, but I love the broader idea as well. Like, relationships are important, getting even more important. I like this point about COVID. Like, many people haven't had, there's fewer in-person meetings. It's kind of special if you come out.
And AI, right?
Yeah.
Like, in the day and age of AI, like, relationships matter even more.
What I also like was like that there's kind of a feedback loop into their own content and research report as well, right? It's not just about building a relationship. You get to meet the actual people. They can give you feedback, like the example he gave, right? About the people in Germany who are actually like, hey, you got to also do the research in Europe then, right? That's valuable feedback. So it's not just about the relationship and getting sales opportunities, but also kind of improving the product.
Another piece is, it's this notion of being super long form, right? If I'm doing the math right in my head, he talked about having 30 to 45 minutes in a meeting of just talking through what the client or prospect is going through. Then he talked about, I think it was 60 minutes of presenting the report, 30 to 60 minutes of that. These are an hour and a half to 2 hour meetings, sometimes including a dinner the night before, which, like, I don't know about you, but like, I don't do that over Zoom, right?
Yeah.
And so there's something powerful about this sort of event or format that's different than scanning the report in the 15 minutes you have before your next meeting. And it makes you really then take it seriously and think about how it's going to impact, in the case of Pipeline360, their marketing strategy for the next 24, 12, whatever, however many months.
But it's a big lift, if you put everything together from what he said, it's like, well, obviously, first of all, you need to have a really good report, right? Otherwise, you have nothing to talk about if it's fluff. And then he was also talking about like, their sales team is involved. He said there's like 2 to 3 prep calls. Then obviously there's just the logistics of, I mean, we even know just from this podcast, like scheduling an interview can be quite a bit of work even with 3 people, right? So if you're like trying to coordinate with like high level folks and, there needs to be sales folks, it needs to be a specific location, there's plane tickets involved. It's like, it's a lot of work. So it's not everybody can pull this off. It's also a big investment for sure.
I think it's a great fit for enterprise companies in general, right? Larger companies selling to enterprise businesses because of that relationship aspect, because you can afford to spend more on an individual relationship because the deal size is so much greater. I also like, this idea of being able to kind of like build an entire marketing strategy almost. I mean, I know we didn't get to it in our talk, but the Pipeline360, Matt's team's doing a lot more than like around these white papers than just this hand delivery, by airplane tactic. But you can kind of build a whole content strategy around this.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we always say that, right? When we work with customers on this kind of content as well, it's like you get so much more mileage out of an anchor asset like this, and Matt is kind of proof of that, right? Like you can build a whole the whole campaign,
literal mileage,
motion around it. Yeah, literally a lot of mileage, mileage. Yeah.
Well, all right. Yeah, excited to see what we come up with, what we hear next from our other enterprise guests. Yeah. Maybe they have some similar event plays, or maybe not. Maybe they're going broad.
Thanks for listening.